Good evening to all the participants who have come in, who are coming in. Good evening to the panelists. Good afternoon. Good morning to all the panelists. Each one of us are from various time zones, and I welcome all of you to this first of its kind webinar series, Supply Chain Disruption in the Diamond Industry. This is indeed the call of the day, as excitement is mounting more than anxiety to face the new future. And today we have expert panelists discussing on the new normal that the diamond sector would be facing, especially the midstream. I'm really thankful to Mr. Ashish Garg, KGK Group, Middle East, as well as Ms. Nirupa Bhatt for having supported this webinar series. And we are on the 6th of the webinar series today and handling a very critical subject on supply chain disruption. Can I ask Mr. Ashish Garg to say a few words and open the webinar? Mr. Ashish Garg.
Thank you, Subbu. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's an indeed honor to welcome all the eminent speakers and participants from the diamond and jewelry sector to this webinar. Topic today, supply chain disruption, is a continuation of our discussion, especially for the diamond segment, which we started in the last webinar. Today's discussion, we will drill deep into the issues of supply chain and how we can address the challenges of the same. We have today with us eminent speakers from the upstream and the midstream of the diamond pipeline, along with the speakers from the financial institutions who are the backbone of the industry. Nirupama ji is there with us to moderate this important session, and we hope that discussion today brings to fore the critical issues and their solutions. I now invite Mr. Subbu to introduce speakers and start the discussion.
Thank you so much, Mr. Garg, and it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our esteemed panelists. For the industry members who don't know me, Subbu, I am the editor of the New Jeweler International Media Group and ex-Time Magazine Singapore. I will be the curator today, along with Ms. Nirupa Bhatt, who will moderate the session. Mrs. Kumo Mogaetsu, an important personality in the diamond mining sector, is currently the Diamond Hub Coordinator under the government of Botswana, a post she has held for 2 years. She also serves as the chairperson of the Diamond Industries Licensing Committee in Botswana, as well as the chair of the working group on monitoring in the Kimberley process. She previously served as Director of Minerals Affairs in the Ministry of Mineral Resources, Green Technology, and Energy Security. It's indeed a pleasure, ma'am, to welcome you to this first of its kind web series, and your presence is at most important for us. Thank you so much for coming in. Mr. Marcus Terhar is the Managing Director of Okavango Diamond Company since August 2017. As the Managing Director and alongside his team, he has led the development and execution of the company's mandate and business strategy. Marcus joined ODC in 2013 as the Deputy Managing Director, where he managed the support services of ODC, while assisting the Managing Director to deliver ODC's strategic products and key business initiatives. With over a decade in the diamond industry, his career in De Beers and Botswana has spanned mining, sales, finance, operations, sales and marketing, and other departments. Marcus received a BA in Honours in Development Studies from the University of East Anglia in UK and a Master's degree in International Relations from the University of Reading. Marcus also serves on the board of Diamonds Do Good, Wilderness Holdings, and the Lady Khama Charitable Trust. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Marcus Terhar, and thank you very much for joining us today. It's a pleasure indeed to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Davy Blomart. Davy is the head of bank's diamond business, the National Bank of Fujairah, which falls under the bank's corporate and institutional banking division. With over 10 years of experience in financing the diamond industry, he successfully established a department within NBF that is focused on providing working capital and trade finance services specific to the diamond sector. Prior to joining NBF, he spent 6 years at Antwerp Diamond Bank, which he supported the development of its Antwerp and Hong Kong business before moving to oversee its Dubai office. Your presence is utmost important today, Mr. Davy Blomart. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to a fun-filled session.
Thank you, Subbu.
It's indeed a pleasure to welcome our next speaker, Mr. Vijay Kalyanaraman. Vijay is the managing partner of Grant Thornton, Botswana since July 2018 and has been with the firm for over 24 years. He has been instrumental in building Grant Thornton, Botswana's diamond clientele services, particularly to the DTC site holders, apart from other stakeholders. Vijay was the first president of the Botswana Institute of Chartered Accountants, the BICA, the body responsible for regulating the accountancy profession in the country. Vijay has chaired Grant Thornton Private Business Growth Awards PBGA committee since 2016. Presented in association with Business Botswana and Business Investment and Trade Center, the award is indeed prestigious. PBCA is Botswana's only private business recognition platform. A warm welcome, Vijay. We do hope your insights into finance will help the industry a lot. Thank you for joining.
Thanks so much, Subbu.
Our next speaker is Mr. Adam Shulman, CEO, Coin International. Adam Shulman has over 17 years of experience across the diamond and jewelry pipeline with a notable business development background. With an eye to exemplary service, continuing innovation and streamlined business practices, Adam has been at the forefront of developing the tender and auction platforms as efficient and effective sales and marketing tools for both buyers and sellers globally. As CEO, Adam has spearheaded the growth and development of Coin International to become one of the influential international diamond tender houses today. Under Adam's leadership, Coin International has emerged as a dynamic and highly respected player in the tender industry. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Adam Shulman. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Jean-Jacques Taché, Director Taché, is a third-generation diamond dealer representing Taché Group with head office in Antwerp. Taché is specialized in higher quality polished diamonds ranging from 1 point up to very large sizes. As DTC and Alrosa site holders, they have manufacturing plants in Botswana, Armenia, and South Africa. Taché's customer base is focused on the high-end jewelry brands around the world. Some of the special initiatives of Taché is that they have been involved in cutting the Queen of Kalahari 340 cent rough diamonds in partnership with Chopard in 2015, and recently the 910 carat Lesotho legend with a leading jewelry house that will be soon revealed. A warm welcome to Jean-Jacques Taché. Your insights as a midstream person would be highly influential in this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Lastly, one of the most important personality in the diamond industry, Vice President of one of the largest diamond bourses in the world. It's a pleasure and privilege to welcome Mr. Mehul Shah, who is the Vice President of Bharat Diamond Bourse, Mumbai, India. He's the second generation diamantier heading Brilliant Diamonds. He's globally known and also part of the WFDB. His services to the diamond industry has been well applauded and acknowledged by one and all in the industry. It's indeed a pleasure and privilege to have Mr. Mehul Shah with us today to give an insight on the diamond midstream. Thank you so much, Mr. Shah, for joining us and welcome. I now invite Ms. Nirupa Bhatt, who will be the moderator for today's webinar. Ms. Bhatt really does not require any introduction. She is known in the industry. She's been there when the industry needed her, and she's been one of the professional person who's been taking or helping the industry to reach their health. Thank you so much, Ms. Bhatt, for joining us today and having moderated this seminar for today. I now invite you to take on and also invite Ms. Kumo to give a keynote address. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Subbu, and thank you, panelists. So we'll first wait for Ms. Kumo to give her keynote address, and then we will have our questions. So Ms. Kumo, welcome, please.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony, government representatives, industry experts, colleagues. I would like to say good afternoon, good morning. It is my pleasure to be here this afternoon, giving this keynote address to this high esteemed forum where industry experts are gathered to discuss supply chain disruption. The webinar could not have come at a better time considering the challenges that the industry is currently facing. While we were seriously concerned about the wavering industry performance, COVID-19 has also hit the international community, aggravating the concerns or the problems that we have been having, especially the decreasing demand. It is in the interest of the international community to worry about the sustainability of the industry, especially those that are directly affected or those whose lives are highly dependent on diamond trade, like Botswana. It is worth taking stock today of where we are and what the current status in terms of industry performance is and what the key challenges are. Current status, if we look at the statistics from the Kimberley process, and other key research companies that have been producing reports. In terms of production statistics, we see a trend that is going down. Production statistics from the Kimberley process shows that between 2017 and 2019, production has gone down by 17%. And this is a trend which has also been predicted by the other researchers, like in the Bain and Company report of 2019, they also predicted that there will be a reduction in production in the next 3 years, which could go up to the levels of the 2016, whereby worldwide production was around 126 million carats. The Kimberley process statistics also show that trade statistics is also going down, with imports having decreased by 17% from the 2017 figure, or during the same period of between 2017 and 2019. We are also seeing the same trend in the exports having reduced by 19%. What are the challenges? The main challenges posing such a disruption, the experts talk about a slowing down demand for jewelry globally. We know that if there is no demand for jewelry, it means there will also be less demand for polished diamonds. It means there will also be less demand for rough diamond. It also appears the latest jewelry designs no longer need as much diamond content as the old designs. We are also seeing companies, especially main retailers, trying to optimize their inventories. This measure is able to assist them in terms of optimizing their cost structures or reducing the costs if they keep stock or they require or they stock their businesses according to demand, which they are also experiencing. We also see decreased available financing for midstream players as the financiers are becoming more and more risk averse. We see contraction in operating margins of the cutting and polishing segment. With less and less margins, companies are becoming less sustainable. We also see moderating global GDP growth. We know that the more the economies grow, that's when there will be increased demand also for luxury goods, because GDP is directly correlated to demand for luxury goods. We also see a lower consumer confidence. We see those shifts in consumer preferences. We see competition between diamonds and other luxury goods. Development of lab-grown diamonds is another challenge, as they also compete with the natural diamonds. We see the current pandemic of COVID-19 also posing a threat to the diamond industry. These challenges may also be broken down into the different segments. At production level, we see closure of old mines as reserves continue to deplete. There is mention of 2 such mines that are on the verge of closing in Australia. We also see lower earnings before interest and tax margins being experienced by the mining companies, which means the businesses or operations are becoming less and less profitable. New projects are becoming less and less attractive. I've talked to the issue of production carats having reduced between 2017 and 2019. What are the challenges at the cutting and polishing segment? We also see squeezed margin between 2018 and 2019. Operating margins contracted by 2 to 3%. according to that Bain report of 2019. And the challenge was experienced, especially with the larger stones. We also see higher cost structures, especially in Africa and China. We also see low productivity, especially in Africa, where there are less skills, where there is less expertise. We also see limited or lack of affordable financing in all the diamond centers, which affect the midstream. Like I mentioned earlier on, some of those banks which used to finance the diamond industry pull out. Those that remain are more risk averse than ever. We see low demand for polished and natural diamonds. We see that piling of stock of polished diamonds, excess inventory. At jewelry manufacturing level, we see that slowing down of demand for jewelry. According to that Bain report that I mentioned earlier on, there was that projection of jewelry sales reducing by up to 2% in 2019. We see that sluggish global GDP, which influences or negatively impacts on demand for jewelry. Shift in consumer preferences. Some of the new generations prefer other luxury goods than diamonds. They prefer to be given iPads as gifts. They prefer to be given smartphones as gifts, which poses a challenge as those products compete directly with the diamond jewelry. Development of LGDs are also a challenge, as we see the production of LGDs happening at much lesser costs, making the business more profitable, and the price of LGD products reducing and becoming more affordable, which makes them of a better choice to some of the consumers. The question is, how can the challenges be addressed? There is need to stimulate economic growth in the different economic setups in different countries. It's upon each and every government, or it should be in the interest of every government, to stimulate the economy, to stimulate economic growth. This could happen in different ways. We have seen in the current pandemic of corona, with some countries taking the initiative of stimulating their economies. There are a few examples in South Africa, a few examples in Botswana, where the government has taken the to subsidize the wages of the different industries, to guarantee loans of the different companies from the private sector, and even offering tax waivers in some instances. It is also important to foster effective partnerships among the key stakeholders, such as governments, such as the diamond industry, such as the financial sector. There should be that collaboration and cooperation in terms of how to solve problems, in terms of how to make better decisions that can make the situation better for everybody. It's important also to enhance innovation and technology advancement, as this could also have a positive impact in terms of the cost structures. It's important also to increase marketing budget and initiatives, as this could increase consumer confidence in natural diamonds and grow the consumer market. In closing, I would like to say we have learned a lot from the COVID pandemic in terms of how the international community can cooperate and collaborate in dealing with challenges. So this should be a lesson that we should use as a stepping stone to address the supply chain challenges. We should be able to work together in terms of addressing these disruptions, in terms of to cooperate and collaborate, in terms of when to sell and where to improve policies accordingly, and where to come with strategies that could benefit all the stakeholders. It is also a good lesson that efficiency and profitability will continue to be main determinants for business sustainability. So, which means we should work together in terms of innovating and developing and advancing technology such that we could improve the profitability of the diamond value chain. I would like to thank you, Master of Ceremonies.
Thank you, Ms. Kumo. I think that very nicely sets the context of what we are planning to discuss in the next hour or so. As we all know that the industry was kind of pretty much closed for almost 2.5, 3 months. And I'm sure for many who are attending today and the panelists, for them it's very, very difficult, as I think they live in excitement from one side cycle to the next side cycle, and they're always on the toes. So I think things have been challenging. But Ms. Kumo, if I can start by asking you, with you mentioned about several challenges that especially the producer countries have, where the GDP forms a very important, or is an important contributor to the GDP of those countries which has developed socio-economically. There are also beneficiation programs in many of these countries. So if I can kind of have your views, what impact will this current scenario have on the beneficiation programs in Botswana? You mentioned efficiency, productivity, margins, they're all under pressure. So if you can kind of throw some light on that, what are your views on that?
This would have a great impact on the beneficiation in Botswana. Botswana participates mainly in diamond exploration, diamond mining, diamond sorting, trading, and cutting and polishing. And this supply chain disruption or these challenges have affected all these segments in which Botswana participates. For example, at the exploration stage, there are a lot of mining jurisdictions who are competing for the explorers, or are competing for the exploration expenditure. And we see Botswana falling down in terms of attracting the explorers or the exploring companies to Botswana, or in terms of attracting exploration expenditure. In the past 5 years, we have seen Botswana falling down in terms of ranking, according to the Fraser Institute survey, the report which was released this year. We see Botswana doing badly at exploration level. In terms of mining also, yes, we might have, we could be stable in terms of production levels if you take the figures between 2017 and 2019. But in terms of sales, we have gone significantly down. If you compare the first quarter of 2020 with the quarters of 2018 and 2017. And in terms of exports, we have also gone significantly down, recording a reduction of about 11% in imports and 22% in diamond exports. And we see less activity in terms of diamond cutting and polishing, whereby the government has set aside a value of diamonds that have to be allocated to the cutting and polishing industry of about $800 million worth of goods. We have seen less offtake this year as compared to the previous years, and we see that we are not meeting the target because the government has set a target that out of these goods which are allocated for cutting and polishing locally, 80% of that should be cut and polished in Botswana. And we have seen, we see a downward trend in terms of achieving that target. Last year we recorded or we achieved about 55%. And we think this year is likely to go below that when we consider the challenges that have been brought up by COVID-19.
Do you see the rough which is allocated for the beneficiation program will reduce significantly in the for rest of the year and in 2021?
The offtake from the companies will go down because, like I was saying, the figure is set according to our sales agreement with De Beers. It's set at $800 million, and we see the offtake is less than that. Factories, cutting and polishing factories based here are demanding less than what they are supposed to take. And we see this trend may continue up to 2021 if the COVID-19 pandemic doesn't improve.
Thank you. So as we all know that in our industry, the site holder system, which is the fixed site system, every 6 weeks one buys, and there is a sense of loyalty that the customers have to the mining companies. The tenders have become kind of prominent instruments and platforms to sell the rough in last couple of years. So given the current situation, what we are experiencing, what we heard from Ms. Kumo, Marcus, what would you think is the impact of the current situation on the customers who have been buying the rough with the tender houses like yourselves? Will they keep coming? Will there be a situation? What do you think will be the challenges? Or could there be opportunities?
Thank you very much, and I hope everyone's well today. Thanks for the question. I think it's fair to say that at times like these, every business has to make decisions which make sense to them, because I think fair to say many are probably in survival mode and they're really thinking in increments of weeks and months rather than years. And I think it's well known that in markets like this, certainly players in the midstream have a tendency to make sure that their biases towards purchasing are really on those producers which offer them, call them contracts, call them sites, whatever committed supply arrangements that they have accessible to them. And so it is increasingly difficult for tender and auction houses because, even in a normal market, all the tenders and auctions and all the producers are really competing for, the share of the midstream's dollar commitments. You will naturally see not just in the tenders and auctions, but also in the major producers who do offer contracts, a shrinkage in purchasing just as a function of where the industry is. But I also think, tenders and auctions probably take a slightly bigger hit in these times. That's not to say that, there's not a place for tenders and auctions in the market. I think, they're a method, a mechanism for distribution and selling, which suits a number of people, not just the large producers, not just the junior miners, because I think for a start, larger producers will tend to have a mix of selling mechanisms, be they auctions, tenders, or even committed sales and sites. But they're really a means to try and gather intelligence on market pricing. They're a very useful means to clear maybe slightly unusual parcels of diamonds or rare parcels of diamonds where it's difficult to determine a market price by means of a traditional price book. They are typically a lower cost version of clearing rough into the market. They don't require huge investments in infrastructure, in personnel, in systems. So I think they still have their place going forward. And it seems as though more and more entrants into the rough trading business, seem to use tenders and auctions as the preferred method of selling, certainly in the last 5 to 10 years. But I think there's a place and there's a balance for both a committed supply situation for companies, as well as this access to tenders and auctions, which can also be useful for the midstream to pick up very specific types of material at certain times in market cycles where they might be needed. So I mean, yeah, we all looking forward to the slow ramp up in the number of auctions and tenders, hopefully being managed in a responsible way and in a way that is being responsive to actually kind of market indicators.
Thank you. Mr. Shulman, from what we heard from the last two speakers, two questions arise. One is, whom is it a good platform to sell? Is it for small junior mining companies or large mining companies to do price discovery? Or as Mr. Marcus said, some unusual stones where you may not have them in the price book. And the second question is, who is the target audience? Are these typically large companies who otherwise buy and they want to continue to have some additional rough supply, or these are small and medium players, niche players who are interested in buying the goods on tender?
Okay, so I think from our point of view, obviously, as Marcus also alluded, tenders have become a dominant player in the last 5 to 10 years as a platform, an efficient platform to move rough from the mining side and then take it through to buyers. So from the mining side, I think tenders are valid for all sizes. We as Coin tend to focus a little bit more on the small to medium-sized mines. And perhaps for the larger mine, as Marcus said, a combination of the two is probably a very good blend of business. But a tender system is a very, very efficient system. So for a miner, as an example, whether they're producing 200,000 carats a month or 100,000 carats a month or even smaller mines, it's a direct manner to reach a global array of buyers. And it doesn't matter if that buyer is a small, independent, one-man operator, if they're a listed site holder, listed company or a site holder. The mine now has an opportunity to sell on an equal footing, on a competitive footing, directly into the cutting market. It allows a mine to obviously get immediate market reflective pricing. So if you're holding tenders regularly, be it monthly, be it every few weeks, I think that's a perfect indication of what the price is and the desire for rough is by the cutting industry at that particular point. Where the buyers are concerned, I think it's open to all. Where tenders, I think, have changed things dramatically, and I believe there'll be a very big part of the industry in the years to come, is it opened up the opportunity for every single player. As I said, it doesn't matter if you're a one-man show and you have $100,000 to spend, or if you're a large listed company and you've got $10 million to spend. You can sit in a tender on an equal footing with every other player, and you can bid and you can view for what you need. There lies the other key part, I think, that is important just to note. You're not taking a full mine's production. You're not taking a production and breaking it up into 10 different parts, etc. You're able to take a mine production, break it down into 100, 200, 300 assortments, and there's a little part for everyone. So everyone gets a part to play. And then with regards to the last question, I think what type of product? I would say it's everything. You know, there's a buyer, whether it's for melee at $3 a carat, and whether it's an exceptional stone at $20 million, there's a buyer and a category of buyers for each type of product. It's about the mechanism. A tender mechanism is giving you something that's efficient and transparent and a true reflection of a market price at that moment in time.
Thank you. That raises a very important question for someone like Mr. Tache, who is selling to retailers, and typically you develop program work with the retailers. The question is, when you are buying goods on tenders, you don't have that continuity, you don't have the assurance of the rough you will get, the polish you will get. So how do you develop the program? So as tenders, the goods on tender become more and more available in the marketplace, and as the mining companies start moving more towards tender, what are the challenges and the opportunities, Mr. Tache, that this represent? And has the current situation made any difference as to how you work with the retailers?
Thank you. I think that, like Adam said, the last 10 years, the market, the distribution of rough has gone, a bigger portion of the distribution of rough has gone through the tender way. There are obviously some advantages for manufacturers and disadvantages. The one big disadvantage, of course, is that it's still an erratic buying, which means you never know exactly if you're going to be able to buy and at what price you're going to be able to buy the goods that you need. And it makes it very difficult to build long-term relations and long-term programs with retailers. That's why we have always kept a part of our business into contracts with Alrosa, with DTC, because we do diamond suppliers, diamond manufacturers, when we deal with large jewelry houses, we do need a certain part of our intake to be regular so that we can just build up these programs. On the other hand, the tender system has allowed us to cherry pick the stones that we really want to buy and not being able to buy over excess of goods that we have, that we don't necessarily have the final consumer, the final customer for that particular diamond. So it gives you a flexibility when it comes to deciding which stone you want to buy because you believe that you have an outlet for this particular product. But I think, and I can only speak about our company, for us, the having a sound mix between a regular intake of goods combined with more focused tender purchases is what makes it the ideal combination to create programs with our customers. We wouldn't be able to live with one or the other. We need both. And to come back to your second question, we believe that of course, in times like this, we're in very challenging times for the moment. The demand has virtually gone down to almost nothing from the retail side. But, every moment of crisis creates and offers new opportunities and challenges. We believe that it's time to focus on the relationships we have with our clients now. It's a time where you can sit down and reflect on whatever programs you did and how you can improve your service to your customer, how you can improve all those little things that you don't necessarily have the time to talk about with them whenever we are in the action. Now, because of this quiet period, we can reflect on on how to enhance our services basically to the customers and how to lay the foundations for when business reopen. I think it's really time to be talking a lot to the customers and to understand exactly what they're going through, not expecting much sales, but you can easily build and create foundations for whenever the markets reopens.
Thank you. So Mehul Bhai, that brings us to the important player in our supply chain, the Indian diamond industry. So in terms of, and we know that we have heard that there has been a move that, the rough import should be voluntarily kind of restricted, etc. The factories have just started opening and all of those things. The goods which are available on a regular basis versus tender. What is the impact of all this is having on the Indian industry, because they have to make the goods available to the other stakeholders in the supply chain?
So we all are the partner in the chain, and what is the situation worldwide right now going on. We are not the only one, or the gem and jewelry sector is not the only one which is presently almost at a halt. Now look at the factories. We are a manufacturing center. All the centers right now are almost at a halt. March and April were almost closed down, and May little bit we have started. But everything depends on how much we are able to sell. Now, if I am looking to the export figures, I'll give you one small example. We have a custom house in Bharat Diamond Books. Of course, there is another one in Surat also. In May, the import has gone down by 80% and export has gone down by 75%. This is, I'm talking of May. However, in Bombay, it started on 11, but Surat maybe started on 2 or 3 of May. Then another, I'm coming back to the June. Presently, the import, since we have also stopped the import voluntarily, but 70% fall is import is there and 50% exports are down. So in this reason, we can understand there is less demand. I mean, very less demand. And accordingly, we have to manufacture. There is a lot of goods lying in the pipeline also. So base thing in the present scenario is to be in the less production. Miners should also stop mining or reduce mining, and same way manufacturers should buy less rough, and there has to be less manufacturing, less exports, and if there is less goods in the market, down the line few months there will be a healthy time. We will see it is not the goods are not selling, there are goods which is selling in Hong Kong, US, online is. So I was coming back that there is a less production in the market, and we need to be minimized at the production side because the lot of factories are not yet open, or those factory working with 10 to 20% capacity they are working. Lot of migrant workers has gone to their native place, and there is lot of fear. You must be reading in the newspaper what is happening in India, yet the COVID part is not under control. So the bigger thing is the life, bigger thing is the health of our people than the money or the economy. So we are with it, and right now at least till 3 to 6 months things will not be in a normal situation, and best thing is to maintain the discipline, less production, less purchase of goods or minimum purchase of goods, try to clear the inventory. And once we are in fine situation, of course, wealth is not over, but it will take some time to cover up.
So do you expect the production to come back to the, say, 2018 level, 2021?
2021, possibly, yes, because this year we don't count that. I mean, there were some lot of nice lines in the social media also that we should delay the year of 2020 because we need to reinstall the year, and 2020 we should not count, just keep, wait and watch and work with the minimum capacity and try to save your expenses, because expenses are the very big part. Certain expenses we cannot stop, but try to minimize, and survival is the problem. So we should try to survive in this situation.
Thank you, Mayur Bhai. So our industry has grown, or any industry grows, and for its growth, it certainly needs a tremendous support from the bankers, the financing. And same is the case with our industry. And in our industry, we had some specialized banks like the ADB and the ABN, State Bank of India in India, who were continuously supporting the bankers, and the industry grew very significantly. The market situation has changed significantly in the last few years. Some of the specialized banks are either not active or have reduced their exposure very, very significantly. So, Mr. Blomaert, in this current situation, do you think that the banks will continue to support the industry, and how? And how do you see the situation evolving for rest of this year and early 2021? What kind of support can industry expect or should expect from the finance industry?
I think majority of the banks have acted pretty responsibly in supporting their clients during these difficult times. For instance, what we have done, we also understand that receivables will be delayed. Majority of the finance in this industry happens via receivables. If you know that receivables are going to be late, because who are our clients? The rough traders, the manufacturers. They polish the diamond, send it to retailers. If, of course, retailers are closed down because of lockdowns, they cannot pay the manufacturers. If the manufacturer doesn't get incoming funds, he cannot remit them to the rough seller, which is my client. Also, the fact that India was under complete lockdown, people couldn't even go to their offices. If they can't go to their offices, how can they make payments? So what we have done, told all the clients, we will give you time for your receivables. Don't worry about that. Your health is much more important for the moment. Please adhere to lockdowns, adhere to safety precautions. And then whenever business can restart, we will worry about the receivables at that point in time. So initially we extended all the tenors with 60 days. After 60 days, we saw it was not yet opened up. So again, we extended with 60 days. What we are seeing now is that markets are slowly but steadily resuming. So now we will see if a further extension is required. But as per my initial feelings, I do not think that further extensions will be required, because payments are coming in, some goods are moving, manufacturing is slowly starting. Now, do I feel that there are enough banks currently out there to support this industry? Yes, there is enough finance out there. As we heard during the opening address as well, and what we have heard previously, is that demand is down substantially. Because demand is down substantially, supply of rough is down substantially. De Beers is giving full flexibility on their sites. Alrosa is giving full flexibility on their sites. Meaning if all that rough is not coming into the market, you don't need finance at this point in time to buy all this. So actually the amount of finance required to support the business is dropping day by day, because business in general is dropping, which is a healthy sign. This is a very healthy sign, because that shows that the finance which is there now is actually used in the business, and with business going down, finance requirement is going down, and which we are seeing, and which I presume other banks will also be seeing, that utilization levels drop substantially day by day, which is the way that we want to see it, because that's a reflection of market reality. So I think as a bank, the only thing that you can do now is give some flexibility to your clients. Of course, some flexibility does not mean, how would I say, full liberty to do whatever you want. That is never a good idea, but a controlled flexibility to ensure that we are there to support our clients in the long run. I think that's the most important that we can do for the moment.
Thank you. So, Mr. Vijay, being the finance person, something that has intrigued me, and I'm curious, because in many other industries, you have the NBFCs and the venture capitalists, kind of willing to finance the businesses or come in to support. We don't really see that in the diamond industry. Any thoughts you have on that? And also, what are the, apart from the normal banks who work and finance the industry, are there any other alternative options available to the diamond businesses to avail of finances?
Thanks so much. Good afternoon to all of you from Botswana. I just want to start with a background. About 10, 12 years back, we as Grant Thornton did a study for the government of Botswana. I just want to share with you, we did a study for the diamond industry for the government of Botswana a few years back, about a decade back. And that was mainly focusing on the then diamond site holders here in Botswana and the ones who were possibly coming and setting up. And one thing which just came as a very general message from almost all the site holders were that as long as we have the stones, the diamonds, and the funds, we will be able to manage any other problem around the ecosystem, whether it is infrastructure or training, and which made the point extremely clear in the minds of the site holders. And to answer that, in the last few years, I'm sure the banking industry has come forward. And even in Botswana, there's been quite a lot of funding activity. As you rightly say, the funding activity has dampened in the last few years. But looking at why is it really getting restricted only to the commercial banks and there's no specific banks is a big question. I think a couple of site holders have even have shared with us, and I believe that a boutique specialist funding houses partnering with our would be a great idea for doing that. But having said that, one very important challenge which I think which has to be dispelled now is the aspect of there is a fear factor, there is a risk averse factor in the minds of financial institutions, mainly coming from the fact that they really do not have a good picture in terms of what's happening on the ground. What's happening on the ground. So as much as the technological developments in terms of controls of diamonds are phenomenally good, the same thing do not necessarily get to the financial institutions in terms of the numbers, for example. The timing, the frequency, the comfort in terms of the numbers, probably there is a bit more enhancements which is needed, which will help more specialist funding houses also to come up in this. Similarly, I think another area where the financial institutions find a bit of a challenge is around when you look at transactions happening with the related companies and all stuff. Most of these countries have transfer pricing regulations. So even those things being clear and communicated to, at the end of the day, the financial institutions are core partners for the site holders, would really make a big difference. And finally, one more thing, which I think it's really time now that traditionally financial statements are all maintained in the respective centers. But today, literally the life is around cloud, and possibly it is time for many of the diamond houses to consider taking their bookkeeping also right onto the digital world so that it's live as much as possible. I think that alignment will do a lot of good. The fact remains that countries like Botswana, we do have quite a lot of funds in the pension fund. And how are these going to be directed to the most important revenue earning segment of our country? I think there is surely a lot of merit in going deeper and making things happen here. Thank you,
Vijay. Thank you. And we want to, at this time, do not want to forget our sponsors. Thank you to De Beers and Get Diamonds to support this webinar. So thank you both. We do have their videos, which we will play in some time. So would you have a lot of questions, or can I continue?
Yes, ma'am. I have a number of questions here, and some of them are really exciting. Some of them are really hard-hitting.
So before we go, can I just quickly ask Mr. Tashe to briefly tell us about Get Diamonds?
Yeah, of course. Mr. Tashe is on the board of getdiamonds.com. If you can.
Yes. So can you please tell us a little about that, and then we can go on to questions.
Get Diamonds was initiated at the end of March as a new alternative, as a new platform for the industry to list their diamonds. I mean, as a new alternative of diamond listed platform. So we felt in the beginning it was a long-awaited alternative because it became and it is the only truly independent and transparent platform available. Because it belongs to the WFDB, it makes it immediately the only platform that is really representing the trade. It's a non-profit organization, not a private company. It's acting for the best of the trade, in our opinion, because whatever revenues that the platform will raise will be reinvested completely for the benefit of the users and for the benefit of the trade in global. And it's not, and any revenue generated doesn't belong to a private entity or private individual. So it is really a fresh initiative. We know there's been a couple of platforms, a couple of leading platforms in the diamond environment the last 10, 15 years, but it's the first time that an initiative has been done by people for the trade, by people from the trade to initiate their own platform. And we believe also that because it's the only platform. We believe sincerely that it's the only platform where we can post our diamonds in a totally transparent way, knowing that our data will not be used to create any price index that would be based on rules that the users are not aware of. And this is what makes it, in our opinion, a valid alternative to the existing platforms where people are listing their goods and where their data is used by the hosts of platforms in order to generate indexes that are totally not transparent.
Thank you, Mr. Tache. Subbu, would you like to go ahead and ask
yes,
if we have from the
before
attendees?
we take in the questions, thank you, Ms. Bhatt, for the opportunity. And I would request Anand to play a small video of our presenters for today. We are really thankful to GetDiamonds.com, De Beers, as well as Coin International. Thank you. And Anand, can you play the video before I take in the questions?
Today, it is not the strongest that survives, but the most adaptable. The World Federation of Diamond Bourses is constantly adapting itself to an ever-changing reality. That's why we are proud to present Get Diamonds, our new state-of-the-art online diamond center for the industry, by the industry. With Get Diamonds, you get transparency. You get a competitive free market that gets you more business. That's how in 5 weeks, you get a platform with $5 billion in total value. So don't get left behind. Get Diamonds, the biggest diamond search platform in the world.
This is a diamond created completely by nature. A precious mineral older than life on Earth. We can quantify its value using the 4 C's: color, cut, clarity, and carat weight. But to know what makes it truly special, we must go beyond. At the De Beers Group, we want to share our expertise with those who value these exquisite gems as much as we do. Let us take you on a journey 3 billion years into the past and hundreds of kilometers below the surface of the Earth. This diamond was born from naturally occurring extreme temperatures and crushing pressures. Carried to the surface by deep source volcanic eruptions, it has lain undiscovered for geological ages, until now. With pioneering exploration and mining technologies, we can find and extract it. With expert cutting and polishing, we can bring out its inner light. And with extraordinary knowledgeable people, we can share our passion with the world. From mining to grading, we at the De Beers Group have expertise in every stage of the diamond pipeline. This has given us the tools to build innovative, flexible and enriching courses, both online and laboratory-based, to help you better understand how these stunning gifts of nature came to be. Because if you love diamonds, your customers will too. Go beyond the 4 C's. Discover a story billions of years in the making.
We have here a list of questions. We have selected a few that could be passed on to the panelists whosoever the question has been directed to, or we put it on the floor and any of the panelists can take up the question. The first question coming here is for Mr. Marcus. I am a midstream diamond company and I need to know, as a mining entity, how can any miner support the buyer in terms of 1, giving credit facility, 2, reducing production? How can a miner, Mr. Marcus, how can a miner support the midstream or the buyers? Can they give a credit facility or can they go slow on production? Your inputs.
Thank you very much for the question. I think let me maybe focus on the second part first, which is on the production side. I think the first thing I need to do is just qualify where ODC sits in the value chain. So we are sandwiched between the miner, which is the extractive part, and the midstream. So in effect, we're just a rough seller. And I can talk to you a little bit about the mining side because I've got a little bit of history in Devswana. When it comes to mining, I think it's important to understand how that part of the value chain works. Unfortunately, with the best will in the world, the nature of mining is entirely complex. And the challenges that you have with mining is you are operating within a very defined set of parameters. You have issues of cost, you have issues of environment, you have issues of geology, you have issues of health and safety, you have issues of logistics, which make it very difficult for a mine to make what I would call kind of quick, lean decisions. And so to make a decision on day X, for it to become effective can take a number of months. Not only that is, mining plans are often made over a series of years and not in weekly increments. So it makes the mining operation very inflexible to changes. Also, when it comes to processing, the nature of that is that it's very difficult to turn on and off processing plants or ramp up and ramp down. So really the only leverage mining companies have in lieu of trying to make kind of commercial decisions is through supply and price. And so it's really there that miners can, affect decisions in a way that might have an impact further downstream. I think, to be fair, this is the first, I've been in the industry for over a decade, probably near on 15 years. This is one of the first times where I've seen every member of the value chain act in a coherent and responsible way. We all, I think, have been exercising a degree of restraint. Big producers have cut their production. I think as you go down into the rough traders and sellers, there's been exercise restraint in terms of the amount of goods that have been offered onto the market. And I think equally in the midstream and downstream, everyone has kind of done the right thing, taken a pause and just reflected on what the sensible decisions to be made are, obviously in light of the COVID crisis. So that is not to say that the miners can't make an impact. They can, and I think, as I said, I think people have been doing the right thing in terms of being very cautious about the amount of supply that's being offered into the market. Insofar as credit is concerned, I'll be completely frank with you. There's two aspects to this, I think, which miners probably even midstream sellers are cautious about. Number one, I think going into kind of credit is an area in which is not many rough suppliers or miners' core business. There are established banks and financial institutions that have been, operating in that space for decades, if not, hundreds of years to the midstream. And so, because it's not an area of core business, people are fairly reluctant to get into it. And so, the other aspect of it is, by its nature, I think offering buyer credit is inherent in many of our inherent in many of the ways that we interact with our customers. So we might not be offering, say, 30, 60, 90 days credit, but there is a form of credit which is inbuilt, certainly in ODC's buying and selling mechanism, which offers a very small amount of credit to buyers. I'm not suggesting this is anything that is anything's going to compensate for the lack of finance that's available in this industry. We all know what the circumstances are there. But as I said, this is an area where financial institutions have tended to play the dominant and sensible role and have the ability to interface with customers in a way that maybe miners can't.
So much, Mr. Marcus. That was indeed in depth. Our next question coming in for Mr. Davy Blumard on finance. The interest rates currently are pretty deep and they have peaked. How do you think the industry should react to peaking interest rates? Will it ever come down? Mr. Davy, would you like to take this question?
I wouldn't say that the interest rates have peaked. Interest rates have never been lower. LIBOR is almost down to zero. So I wouldn't say that the interest has peaked. Now, we have to all agree that there is a certain amount of risk in financing the diamond trade because there is hardly any hard collateral that a bank outside of India can take. In India, the banks, the consortiums, they often have recourse to all the assets which are on the ground, so the factories and all these things more, which gives Indian banks on average a hard collateral amount of anywhere between 30 to 50%. While if you look for any of the overseas banks, let it be in Dubai or Antwerp, at best you're getting 5 to 10% of hard collateral. So, and history has shown us if something goes wrong, banks are often left hanging out to dry. So that increased risk is always factored into the margin. But how the majority of the banks work, it is LIBOR plus that margin to factor in the risk. And as LIBOR is extremely low, the cost of financing is actually pretty low, and it has come down with a few percent compared to the beginning of the year. Because in the beginning of the year, the first quarter, you were talking about LIBOR of around 2.5%, where currently LIBOR is at almost near to zero.
Thank you so much, Mr. Davy. I'll add on to this. What about the working capital? Because a number of companies, including the midstream, are looking at working capital more than buying diamonds. What's your take on working capital requirement?
So again, working capital, what is your working capital requirement? That's your stock inventory plus your receivables minus your payables. That's your working capital. As people are currently not really buying any new rough diamonds, but receivables are coming in slowly but steadily, and inventory is getting manufactured and sold, your working capital actually shrinks, or your working capital requirement actually shrinks. And that is what we are seeing. Working capital requirement of many of our clients is shrinking, which is getting translated in less utilization. And that is what I'm hearing not only from National Bank of Fujairah, but that is also what I'm hearing from my colleague competitors, the other banks, where we are seeing the same trend, that utilization is dropping because working capital requirement is dropping, because no new rough diamonds are getting bought, receivables are getting liquidated slowly but steadily, and inventory is shrinking. If you look at, let's say, third quarter, fourth quarter last year, when inventory levels were very high, especially in India, working capital was high. And ever since then, people, the bears, have been showing good constraint and have been working even at the end of last year to bring less rough goods on the market, to bring that clogging of the pipeline of polished overhang supply down. Ever since then, we have been seeing a downward trend in working capital requirement and bank utilization. So to say that at this point in time, there is a shortage of working capital finance, I would beg to differ. I would tend to disagree with that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mark. That's a different perspective that you've given to the trade. Our next question is for Mr. Mehul Shah. What about the inventory that is lying in the midstream? What strategy would you adopt to reduce the inventory on a low demand situation?
Stop the purchases, not to buy or minimize your buying, because you need to buy at least a small quantity, small manufacturing there, mix up and try to sell the present inventory, but not to buy, because there has to be a proportion between your outlet and inlet. If you have some inventory in the pipeline, you need to clear it first before entering into the new commitments. So right now, since everything at standstill, there is no import, there is very, very minimized manufacturing, maybe between 10 to 20%. So I think within coming due course of time, maybe a few months it will take, but there will be less. And one thing is very good. Before the COVID part started, looking at the situation of the industry, people were almost very minimized at the inventory level. The earlier the size of the inventory we used to have, if you look at the last 2-3 years figures, the figures has been declining, the sales has been going down at many areas, and people were already very much less in the inventory. Lot of goods were not into manufacturing also. And if you look at the present situation in the industry, there are certain goods it is not available also. And when you ask for the small goods or the cheaper goods, it is very less in the market. So if, and the jewelry part, at the lower end jewelry part is doing pretty well in USA in online sales, which is selling more. And that goods is very less in the market. So a couple of months, you see that there will not be that kind of goods in the market. So it is not that you have to zero down yourself, but you have to look at your situation. What is your position in the market? Take your position and do the business accordingly. Final decision every entrepreneur has to do on his own. But one thing is for sure, that don't sit in the inventory. But many of the mid-stream people were not too much into the inventory, and a lot of companies are also little bit easy in cash. They are not in a crunch and they have the buying power. And some kind of goods, some part of the goods is also selling. Jewelry is also manufacturing. So it will take a couple of months, but very much stabilize.
Thank you so much. Point well taken, Mr. Shah. One question which I feel is important that we should take is for Mr. Davy Blumart again. The spread that banks are taking, as I understand, is because there is a risk. But then why not do more due diligence when giving credit instead of asking everyone to pay high spreads for the risky clients?
I think everybody who has credit facilities can agree that the level of due diligence that the banks currently do before issuing credit facilities is already extremely extensive. Now, of course, unfortunately, none of us have a crystal ball. We don't know when we are issuing a credit facility that this person will not go bankrupt in 5 years or 10 years down the line. Nobody knows in advance. Even clients themselves, I still need to meet the first person, except a few crooks who are into the defrauding banks business, who will actually take finance in advance with the idea of taking the money from the banks. Now, we are doing all that due diligence and very extensive due diligence to make sure that we only finance good and respectable companies. That being said, your spread needs to justify the risk, because as a bank, there is only a limited amount of capital that you can give out in the market. Now, either you give it to this company, to company A, B, or C. That's it. You can't, there is only a limited amount of capital. There's not an unlimited amount of capital. Now, if you can give it, I like to give a very simple example. If you give it to a Mercedes dealer, where you are saying, I am financing this Mercedes S-Class, and this Mercedes C-Class, and this Mercedes E-Class, and you put down the serial numbers, you have, how would I say, tangible assets, if something goes wrong, that you can sell off those assets. When you're financing diamond companies, what we have seen in the past many times, if something goes wrong, it is very difficult to get, as a bank, to get a lien or a pledge, or to physically get your hands on whatever inventory is there, and to be able to exercise your rights on the receivables. So that's an inherent risk on the business. That is also the reason why so very few banks get into it. And as my fellow panelist was saying before, yes, niche, how would I say, a lot of the banks out there, they miss the expertise on this business, so they just shy away from it. Why is National Bank of Fujairah in the last 5 years has come up in such a big way? Is because we have a team of people who were all trained by Antwerp Diamond Bank, myself, Paul de Wachter, who manages our Antwerp office. So we have been experts in this industry for the last 15 years, Paul even 20 years. So that's why we understand the business, and that's why we are able to convince our own bank to support this industry, whereas a lot of other banks don't have this in-house expertise, so they simply shy away from it. So that being said, you need that certain amount of spread. Now, you can say that this is a very high spread or a very low spread. That's, I don't even want to start into that discussion. But if you look what certain very large companies, I'm talking stock listed companies, need to pay for their finance and what these diamond companies are paying, we are not talking huge differences. We are not talking huge differences.
Thank you so much, Mr. Devi. I invite Ms. Nirupa Bhatt to have a question. Post her question, we will take one more and then end the session. Ms. Nirupa Bhatt.
The question I have is for Ms. Kumo and for Mr. Tache. It is about sustainability. Post-COVID and during in last few weeks and months, we have heard more and more about how there is more awareness about nature, about the origin, etc., etc. So, Ms. Kumo, do you think sustainability plays, the origin plays a role in selling? Are you thinking? Do you think there is something that can be built on? And afterwards, I would like Mr. Tache to also give his views on, are the retailers interested? What role sustainability plays at the retail end?
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Kumo, would you like to take this first?
Thank you for the question. I'm not so sure I got it clearly. If the sustainability is linked to maybe where the diamonds originate or provenance, I would like to say yes, we think linking diamond marketing to the place of origin. For example, if you take Botswana and you link diamonds from Botswana to where they are mined, and a place of democracy, a place where there is no conflict, and so forth and so forth, and you come up probably with a brand, branding Botswana diamonds like that and marketing them like that. We think it can add value. We have tried to do some kind of a study to look at whether branding has got significant value that you can talk to, and we couldn't really get that value, but we still think we still think it can be useful. Thank you.
Well, for us, it's been already a few years working with the leading jewelers in the world. We have our factories being audited, our workplace being audited, all our process, all our streamline from rough buyings to manufacturing to delivery is being audited, is being reviewed by our customers so that it adhere to the standards that they are asking us to follow. As to origin, of course, origin is something that we've been, that jewelers have been requesting from us to deliver them proof of origin much more the last 3-4 years than ever before. GIA, of course, with Diamond Origin Report, has given us a great tool to certify the origin of a diamond. It's been requested more and more by our clientele. We have the Tracer program now from the BIS also coming into consideration for securing the whole pipeline from mine to jewelry. So this is issues that we've been busy with already the last 5 to 10 years, and they've become very important, especially now with the naturality also, certifying the naturality of our product, the synthetic free delivery of all our diamonds. All these auditing processes have been handled in-house, but have been handled following, under the controlling eye of leading brands that we serve. So it's definitely an issue today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tache. Thank you, ma'am. The last question from, in fact, ma'am, we have over 26 questions pending now. So we will take one one last question from Mr. Deepak Laki. From Deepak Laki, a member of DMCC Dubai UAE. Would you like to come in, Mr. Laki?
Yes, can you hear me?
Thank you so much for coming in. All yours.
Thank you, Mr. Sabu, Nirupaji, and all the panelists to be here and to let us hear you. My point goes to the point when we talk about the diamond supply chain, the disruption in the diamond supply chain. We need to talk about the disruption. Where is it? We had Ms. Kumo rightly spoke about low demand in polish, high risk, low margins, lab grown diamonds coming around, iPads, etc., being sold in place of natural diamonds. And she also rightfully said to grow consumer demand. So here, if that is being faced by the midstream, we should pay a lot of attention to that and address these issues. Not only Ms. Kumo, but Marcus, Adam, John, Devi, all have, and K. Vijay also has spoken about it. So let us make it a point and address it. We should understand that our chain, the supply chain, is as strong as the weakest link in the chain. And if the midstream is weak, we may be losing on both sides. Midstream is not going to lose alone. On the both sides, we will have that. I will only say that, time is up, and probably we should have a webinar with the new jeweler should take it up and keep on doing this. And let's hope that we can keep on connecting all the partners and address this issue. We should not
put it on the carpet. Thank you so much, Mr. Lucky. Your words of wisdom, definitely yes, we would do it. We have Mr. Mehul Shah wanting to come in now. Mr. Mehul Shah, do you have a comment?
Yes, Subbu, coming back to the certificate, the origin, the description of the origin or the mines on the certificate is a good thing. Tashe and Ms. Kumo also said about it, but I am talking about the smaller goods where it is from the cleavages or the smaller goods which are not certified also. In these kind of diamonds or the low quality diamonds, this kind of origin is not possible. And it should be always spoken that it is whenever there is a bigger diamond or the certificate diamonds, there, yes, certification is, the origin can be described. But when it comes to the smaller diamonds or the cheaper diamonds or the cleavages, which is coming from the cleavages, cannot be like said that the origin is must or origin can be given. It is not possible only. Just it's a small comment to draw the attention.
All right, thank you so much. Before we end the question and answer session, I would request Anand to play the video of Coin International, one of our third presenters. Thank you so much for the presenters. And after the video, over to you, Ms. Nirupa Bhatt, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Can you just give me a brief idea about the purity in this parcel?
The parcel is similar exactly to the way it was the previous month.
Can you see me the heavy PK? Would you like me to weigh this for you?
Yeah, can you let me know the pointers, please?
How much is the percentage of color?
Yeah, can you show me the weak models?
And then if there's any other thing that you want him to weigh or to take out, then he can do this for you also. Since you guys are not able to see it, of course, by yourself at the moment, we're trying to give you the maximum confidence by showing it to you in this way.
Thank you, Subbu and Anand and the New Jeweler Group for organizing this. I think these sessions are becoming interesting. I think we probably needed a little more time to ensure that we do justice to all the questions and that the panelists could really give, we could use more of their expertise. So maybe we learn from our experience. So thank you all for all the panelists for joining us today, and our sponsors as well. A very big thank you to Ashish. In fact, he initiated this idea, I think sometime in March, April, and then wanted to take this. Ashish, would you like to say something about how this is going forward? You started with one and then where we are today.
Thank you, ma'am. I think it was a great session today. Getting the views of the miners from auctioneers and the manufacturers and the financier in one webinar. It's fantastic. And I hope a lot of people have gained a lot of insight into the industry today. And as always, ma'am, you have been a great moderator and has been able to bring best out of the people. Thank you so much. And I hope we can continue this kind of a web series and we can add more value to the industry, bring more knowledge. That's the major attempt out of this entire exercise. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Ashish ji. Mr. Ashish Garg, one of the largest diamond guys in the midstream, has been silent today and has been a keen observer. Maybe, Mr. Ashish, we will have one more webinar to answer all your questions. Thank you so much for your patience and observance. It gives me great and immense pleasure to thank the speakers. The New Jeweler International Media Group has been inviting eminent speakers to address the midstream and the other segments. We really thank the speakers who have come in and put in their time. I'm sure some of the speakers wouldn't have had the time to talk their mind out, but definitely, yes, we have a series of webinars where we'll be inviting our speakers once again. Thank you, Mr. Devi. Thank you, Ms. Kumo. Thank you, Mr. Mehul Shah, Mr. Vijay Kalyanaraman, Ms. Bhatt. Thank you, Mr. Adam. And it's indeed a pleasure and a privilege to have you with us. Thank you very much. Till next time, next week. Bye.
So before all of you disappear from your screens, I will probably connect with quite a few of you to have a one-on-one chat, because I still do have a lot of questions. It was really enough. So I hope all of you won't mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.